So, before we get started, I want to ask you how you doing.
I'm doing pretty good today, as you can see. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good today. No nauseousness, no sickness, no pain right now. So, thank you, Jesus. Let's just hope it stays that way. As you know, I had
Amen.
a tumor removed June 3rd, and see the doctors July 13th, and we'll decide, whether or not I need the final surgery. But other than that, today, I'm doing good. Feel pretty good.
What made you decide to do a document about your mom?
Well, I decided to do the documentary about mom because, you know, when mom was first murdered, grandparents, took over, ended up adopting me and my sister and raising us. And, as I was going into adulthood, I felt like, that we never really got our say. We never got a chance to, discuss, you know, what was going on, what was taking place with the man, what was happening with, mom. We just never, there were just a lot of things that I felt like went unanswered. And family members would talk about mom, when I would ask questions. And uh, but there was never really a really in depth or really deep conversation when it came to discussing mom and what happened to her. So this is just basically my tribute to her. I want people to know who she is. I want people to know how she died. Um, and more than that, I want to free myself, if you will. This is something that I've carried around forever. The burden of losing mom and her being murdered, and my not being old enough or big enough, to call 911, blaming myself for all these years. And I think that the time has come for me to just share mom, and free myself. You know what I mean? Just free myself and let her rest, because it really dawned on me that the last few months that my mother has probably not been resting, knowing that her children have suffered uh, because of her tragedy, and knowing that her oldest child blamed herself, went through life blaming herself because she wasn't big enough or old enough to call 911. So I want to give my mother some peace, and I want to free myself of the guilt. And I feel like doing it out, writing it on paper and talking to people about it in private, anybody could do that. But to actually speak it out loud, it says a lot to me. It says a lot to my heart, and shares a lot about me and to me about my healing process. So those are some of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to talk about mom.
Who was Dorothy Lucille Williams?
Mom she was a tall, slim woman. She was so pretty. She was like a dark brown skinned woman. She had the most prettiest hair, and she was like I told you, she was a slim woman. She loved church. She loved us. She was an evangelist. She loved going to church with that grandmother of hers. My great grandmother was a pastor. Most people don't know that know me. She was sweet. She was kind. She smelled so good. She was just, my mother was just a kind soul. She was just a joy to be around. And she was just a wonderful spirit. She was so, my mother, I remember her peace. She had a peacefulness about her. And so I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
What happened to her?
Well, okay. So one day, my mother was in the kitchen cooking breakfast for me and my sister. I mean, it was smelling good in there. She had it smelling good in there. I can't remember what it was she was cooking, but I do recall there being some bacon and eggs and pancakes. So the three of us are in the kitchen, and my grandmother, which is her mother, was at the hospital called City Number One, with a cousin of hers giving birth to her first child. So it was just me, my mother, and my sister home alone. We were just sitting there laughing, and Mama's cooking, and I mean, I just remember the mood and the sitting at the table and Mama talking, and she was deaf. My mother was deaf. A lot of people don't know that about my mother. Only a handful know. My mother was deaf, and we were, as children, we did sign language. Of course, I don't know it now. You know, we did that as a child. But so anyway, there was a loud knock at the door. My mother went to answer the door, and it was a gentleman. It was a gentleman that she had been dating. The two of them, you know, I heard their murmur and noises, and they were having a conversation. So they walked towards. At this time, we had a long hallway. So they walked towards the hallway, walked down the hallway, and I remember noises and them conversating and talking. And my little video self, well, I got out of my chair, and I had went towards the hallway. You can see that they were making gestures and, you know, having some sort of an altercation. I mean, I'm a baby. I don't know what the hell is going on. You know what I mean? So all I know is I remember there being some exchange with hands, and which we learned later was a violent attack on my mother. And then I remember George running to the door, and I remember my mother running behind him with a big chair. I have no idea where the chair came from. No idea. She came running after him and threw this chair at him. And she came right back into the living room where we had the space at the couch, the table, and all this. And my mother collapsed, and she fell in the middle of the floor. My little sister at the time, she was crying, and I had to console her, and at the same time I was trying to help my mother, holding my mother and talking to my mother, and all you could see was just this big puddle of blood. And I have no idea, Irma, what made me go next door to get help. At the time, my mother had a friend that lived on the same breezeway. This happened in the project. And I believe we lived on the 5th or the 6th floor at the time, because we had just moved from the hill. My great-grandmother's house, I think they sold it or something, and we ended up moving to the projects when I was a little child. But we were originally from the hill. My people from Mississippi, Memphis, you know, they're from everywhere, Chicago. But anyway, I went across the breezeway to let the neighbor know that Mama was in a puddle of blood. I don't remember my exact words, but this elderly lady could tell you right now exactly what I said. And she came over and saw Mama in the puddle of blood. And before I knew it, there was just all these people in the house. Policemen, and, you know, I remember people trying to help my mother, and it was just so chaotic. It was just, you know, it was just a lot of chaos. You know, as a child, you don't really grasp or understand what is going on. So that was the hardest day of my life, my sister, when I tell you. So, you know, I had to share just.
So how has this affected your life in a positive way, or do you still harbor negative from this life-changing event?
Well, let me just say this. I am so happy that you asked that question. I harbor no negative feelings. I promise you. You know me. For many years, you know, my early 20s, even my 30s, for sure I would have to say, yes, I did. I had a lot of anger, you know, built up inside of me, a lot of hurt, sad. You know, I'm a girl, you know, missing my mother. I mean, who wouldn't be mad? You know, who wouldn't be angry? I had to go through life without my mother, me and my sister. So that was hard. I went through all kinds of feelings. I had all kinds of feelings. Oh God, there were some bad ones too, and I think understandably. You know what I mean? But I'm in a different space now. I decided that whew, I decided that. Well, let me just answer your other question. You said how is it affecting me in a positive way? Well, well, I'm so happy to say this. I grew up in church. I loved church like my mother did. I attended Catholic school. I loved the Lord growing up. Let me tell you, and still love Him. Thank God I know Him, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have got through the shit I got through, right? So, um, I as a result of mom's death, I escaped to theater. Theater was acting became as an outlet for my pain and my grief and my suffering. It was a way for me to just get away and just be something else and be somebody else. And you play the characters and so forth. But here's the thing. Here's the trick. At 9 years old, I ended up falling in love with theater. Ain't that some shit? It was I got into it because of a negative, and ended up loving it. So it became a positive. Tell me God ain't good. So those are definitely some of the positives, and I think I'm the woman that I am today because of my mother. Because I could have easily gone and taken another road, and to be truthful with you, there were a couple of times that I was headed that way. And I'm just going to keep it 100 with you, sis. You know a couple of the stories that that I've been through, some things that I've gone through. I think I have a more kinder, gentle spirit because of my mother. I think I'm just in general nice because of her. But that is called being strong. And I think that right there, that only comes from God, because I don't think that I would have made it through up until now without Him just having His hands on me. So those are definitely some of the positive effects that it's had on me. And like I said, I have no hard feelings toward Him. I'm actually looking forward to and reaching to forgive Him, if you will.
You spoke with a assistant city circuit attorney last year about visiting George Jones. Tell me about the conversation.
Yeah, I did. I spoke with an assistant city circuit attorney. Well, when George was sentenced, he was sentenced to I think second. Oh, got the paperwork here. I'm definitely. Ooh, here we go, sis. Okay, so I've been getting these letters. So this letter is basically talking about how he's been extended in outpatient in Fulton. His care has been extended. So he was released last year to outpatient care. So when he killed Mom, he was sentenced to second-degree murder, and they put him in a mental institution in Fulton. So all these years up until last year, this man's been put away. But now they released him into outpatient. And I got this letter a couple of months ago, and then I got one last year and 1 year before now. These people know me because when I became of age, I started calling them to check on his condition, to see how he was doing. And at that time, I only did that because I wanted to meet him. I wanted to lay eyes on him, if you will. I wanted to have a sit down with him. Even though they say he was mentally insane,